Hello everyone and welcome to another TIBCO BusinessWorks lesson. In software integration, systems often decide to interact by exchanging files. These files have a well-defined structure, usually composed of rows formed by values, separated by a character defined by the systems that intend to interact. For example, I've created this file containing ParseData as a separator character. We use pipe. The first row is composed of the header with the field names and the subsequent ones are values. Some field is missing. It's very similar to an SQL table. In TIBCO BusinessWorks, for the creation or rendering of these types of files, the DataFormat resource used by specific palettes comes to our aid. The resource defines in a certain sense the structure of the file. The palettes allow us to parse and render the file itself. In resources, we create the DataFormat resource. This needs the column separator, in our case the character pipe, and the row separator, which for Windows operating systems is the Courage return line feed characters. Furthermore, it needs an element of an associated XSD schema. I've created this schema previously containing the fields of the file header in a component process ParseData, already preset with the logging scene in the last lesson. We first read the file with a specific palette, where the file name including path can be inserted in the general section or in input. If both are populated, the input one wins. In output, it's possible to retrieve all the file properties and its content. To parse the text content file and generate an XML document, we have to use the ParseData palette. Let's associate the previously created DataFormat resource with it. When this type of association is made, a process property that references the resource is automatically generated. The ParseData therefore wants a text as input, where we insert the retrieved file, and the number of records to be parsed. If set to -1, it considers them all. In output, we will have the rows element which contains the XSD element associated with the resource. Be careful, even if the created element was single, it is made repetitive. So we will have a person element for each row, where the first occurrence can be discarded as it is a header. We log the XML document output from the ParseData with the renderXML function. If you're finding this helpful, please hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Let's launch the debug, remembering to set the activator useful for logging. Copy the result to Notepad. The generated XML document has all the ParseData made available for their use. The first record contains the header and in the subsequent ones there are data that can be retrieved. Note, some people have not entered the address, so it considered it empty. If in the XSD this field had been mandatory, the parse would have raised an exception. Now, for example, let's assume that more of these files are inserted. Each time I would have to indicate the path and name of the file to read. To ensure that it retrieves a file whenever it is inserted, a FilePoller palette comes to our aid. This is responsible for starting the flow, just like the timer, so we replace it. In general, we can define how often in seconds we want the execution for search the file. In the file name section, we can insert the complete file name, but by doing so, it would still only retrieve the file with that name by using *.extension, *.csv in our case. It retrieves all files in that folder that have such extension. In output to the FilePoller, we have the file information including the text content that we give as input to the ParseData without needing to read the file anymore. For example, I've created similar files with different names. Let's launch the debug and try to insert the first file. It was processed correctly. Let's reset the debug window to make it more understandable and insert the remaining two files. Every time we place a file in the specified folder, the execution flow starts, the FilePoller retrieves the file's content, and ParseData parses the data according to the defined structure. In the next lesson, we will see the inverse process, that is, rendering the XML document and writing the formatted data to a file. We will also see how to move files from one folder to another. As an exercise, try repeating this process, but this time, output with two XML documents. One should contain records of individuals older than 30 years, and the other should contain those younger than 30. I hope this lesson was helpful. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future tutorials. Your support helps me create new content. For any questions, feel free to write them in the comments. See you next time.